let's jump into probably the dumbest person to guide us through this. This is truth about Ukraine, Russia, not what you think. So whatever you've come to, whatever conclusion you come to, and by the way, this is from February 24th. So we've had, this is the day of the beginning of it or right before, depending on when he posted it. So hindsight's 2020, and he could. And by the way, yes, you're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide, infotainmentwars.com, and of course, twitch.tv/Hal Sparks. Don't forget to like and subscribe, give a thumbs up. If you're on Facebook, you can give stars to support the show. That's a great way to do it. Or you can Venmo the show, or you can Patreon support the show. There's lots of ways to do it. And here we go. This one's long, kids. So I may at some point just go fuck this and bail out because it's boring and weird. But this is, this is the description of this right down here says, while the Biden administration and its mouthpieces in the mainstream corporate media beat the drums for war, which beat the drums for war. Okay. While labeling Putin an imperialist warmonger, yeah, I mean, the poor guy. How dare we call him such terrible names? Few bother to mention the decades of intensive American meddling in Russian and Ukrainian affairs that have inexorably led to the current crisis. Jimmy and journalist Max Blumenthal discussed the events that precipitated Putin's recognition of the Donbass region's independence. That's what it is. If it hadn't been for the American meddling, Putin never would have come to this. This is because of us. We did this. America's fault. This is America's fault.
About the Ukraine, and I just want to start off with this.
First of all, it's Ukraine, fucko. It's a country. The Ukraine is what the Russians call it because they believe it's their territory, like the Mojave Desert. We don't call the Mojave Desert because it's not an actual country or a state in and of itself. We call it the Mojave Desert. In the same way, the Russians call Ukraine the Ukraine because they think it's fucking theirs. And so when people start talking about it and they go the Ukraine, automatically your antennas should go up.
I saw this on the Twitters. It says this is a guy named
Malinowski.
Tom Malinowski. Yeah. He's a diplomat, father. So it's more important to him to be a diplomat than a father, which I think is effed up. That's
well, one is the first one is not maybe perhaps the importance on which he puts his role in the world, but on why you should listen to him on the social media platform that he's on, so that you would take it away that this is he's a diplomat. That's why what he's saying actually amounts to something.
Where he gets his sense of self from his job, like a real man. Anyway, diplomat, father, former Assistant Secretary of State for Democracy, Human Rights and Labor. He's a congressman, and he represents New Jersey's 7th District, which is where Kurt is right now at Uncle Vinny's. So he'll be at Uncle Vinny's all weekend. Anyway.
I think that's a joke related to something else.
So Tom Malinowski's tweeted this out. He said, I'm just returning from the Munich Security Conference where national security leaders from the U.S. and Europe gathered to confront the Ukraine crisis. Some good news. I've honestly never seen more unity among our allies or two parties in Congress on any global issue. Okay, that's actually bad news.
No, it isn't.
It turns out it's bad. When the Democrats and as George Carlin pointed out many years ago, when the Democrats and Republicans agree on something, that means there's an extra good screwing coming your way.
Yeah, he wasn't talking about stuff on the level of like Hitler invading the Sudetenland or Poland. Because I don't know if you know, but a lot of people on different sides of the political spectrum came together in response to Hitler. There are exclusion zones to this idea. I think he's talking about tax policy, but you can think, to Jimmy, tax policy and the invasion of Ukraine, same thing.
So this is not good. I just want to remind people what started all this stuff that's happening in right now, the most recent history. There's longer history.
Yeah, it's long. He's going to set us up When is this one? This is from 2016.
But this is so when Germany got.
Oh, and by the way, don't let op-ed fool you. This is not someone's opinion editorial. This is fact.
Back together, reunified. Part of the promises was that we wouldn't expand NATO, right? We're not.
Yeah, but then also they weren't supposed to go into Chechnya or Georgia or into Crimea and those places. And every time they did, we would expand NATO because the neighboring countries were like, I don't know if I feel safe around this asshole.
To do it. We've been expanding NATO nonstop, and now we want to do it to Ukraine, which is
can't fix the slip finally.
Used to be part of Russia. It's right on Russia's doorstep.
Yeah, your doorstep. It's it's the welcome mat of Russia. If you want to visit, if you're an Amazon driver, you just leave stuff in Ukraine, and Russia will pick it up when they get home from work.
NATO broke the promise. So we've been expanding. So that's the big problem here.
And now the NATO expansion, by the way, countries can join NATO if they fucking want to. NATO isn't going out and shopping for these folks to join. But if they don't feel safe and they want to join the alliance because they're worried about Russian aggression, then they should have the right to join. The idea that somehow Russia can say, look, no one else can join your treaty, no matter what the fuck we do, is insane.
There's other problems. And here, this is a pretty good explainer. It's on fast speed, so really got to listen. Here we go.
Great explainer. Okay, great. So, by the way, so this is where Jimmy got his idea of how it works.
So on Monday, Russia's President Vladimir Putin officially recognized 2 breakaway areas in eastern Ukraine. Both of them are in the Donbass region. They call themselves People's Republics of Luhansk and Donetsk.
Yeah, they aren't. They're not breakaway areas. They're still part of Ukraine.
Been controlled by pro-Russian separatists since 2014 with Russia's backing.
Oh, they've been controlled by pro-Russian separatists with Russia's backing. That's weird. Tiny little country like Russia, it manages to carve off a chunk of another country using separatists that support the bigger country who just happen to... Okay.
Now, these so-called People's Republics make up around 1/3 of the Ukrainian districts of Luhansk and Donetsk. And there's what's called a line of...
I'm sorry, how much? How much? These so-called People's Republics make up about...
These so-called People's Republics make up around 1/3 of the Ukrainian districts of Luhansk and Donetsk. And there's what's called a line of...
That's the... Hold on. What in the world? Yeah, that's not happening. Blink. Someone's... Guys, I don't want anybody posting people's addresses and stuff in my chat. Go away.
With the separatists on one side and the Ukrainian forces on the other. They've been...
Oh, I see. That's not misleading or fucking anything. Ukrainian separatists are here. These are just separatists. They just want to be separate, guys. They're just, they're Russian-backed militias and they're supported with arms and all this stuff, but they're just separatists. Everywhere in this area, that's not Ukrainians. That's not people who live and work over here and used to be able to come and go as they pleased without having to go through checkpoints. No, those are Ukrainian forces.
Each other off and on across that line for years, even though they're supposed to be...
Even though there's supposed to be a ceasefire. They've been firing. Weird.
Fire.
It's almost as if the Russian separatists who are getting constant arms from Russia don't want it to hold.
So they've been fighting across here. So this is where the separatists are.
Yes, that's where the separatists are. These poor people. Yeah, all they want to do is separate, guys. They just want to, when they eat, they make sure their vegetables don't touch their meat. It's, they don't like it when their corn hits their mashed potatoes. They're just separatists. It's like a religion.
And this is where the Ukraine forces...
Yeah, it's just all forces. There are no citizens in that area. I don't know if you know that. No one works in that area. No one lives in that area. There's no farmers, nothing. It's all just jackbooted Ukrainians.
And they've been fighting since 2014, right, Max? Would you say since 2014? Yeah,
they've just been fighting since 2014. just fighting. These assholes didn't try to seize a chunk of the country for Russia in 2014. They've just been fighting ever since. It's just on and on.
There's a thing called the Minsk Accords, and they've never been following them, but that's...
Yes, you mean the Russian muscled bullshit accord that was meant to force the existence of these separatist regions onto Ukraine? Like, hey, we took these places. Now you have to recognize them and leave them the fuck alone so we can start salami slicing across your goddamn country.
You say that's how long they've been fighting, or have they been fighting longer, Max?
Fighting really started around 2015, but 2014 was the pivot point when ultra-nationalist forces were invested with a lot of power as sort of the
ultra-nationalists. The people who are Ukrainian and live in Ukraine and don't want Russia to steal giant chunks of their country. That's what makes you an ultra-nationalist. Let me just put it this way. If Cuba decided, fuck it, we own Florida, and anybody went, what? And fought back, the Floridians would suddenly, old and young, would be ultra-nationalists.
The military muscle as militias of this new government in Kiev that came into power through
the muscle of this democratically elected government.
Effectively was a coup masquerading as a color revolution. No.
Yeah, that's the problem with protests and stuff. By the way, what Max is repeating here, and what Jimmy supports, I guess, otherwise you wouldn't have this asshole on, is the Manafort position. This is the Paul Manafort position. Everything that Max Blumenthal has asserted about this situation is the Paul Manafort version of history.
It's the Maidan revolution of dignity, and officially it brought into power a completely U.S.-backed government that replaced the leader, Yanukovych, who had been...
Yeah, poor guy, Yanukovych. It was terrible. This poor guy, he was sure, he was a Russian sock puppet, and he was funneling money out of the country, and when he left the country, they raided his house and found that he'd been socking away taxpayer funds, and he was undermining the entire government on behalf of Putin for years in an attempt to make it easier ultimately for the Ukraine to be absorbed back into Russia, right?
He's called pro-Russian, but he was basically balancing Ukraine.
Yeah, he was balancing Ukraine with Russia. Like, look how big Russia is, huge. You put that on one side, and you put Ukraine on the other side, and obviously, it's going to do this. Yeah, hold on.
With its oldest and closest trading partner and political partner in Russia.
Yeah, they're just family. Just I don't know why they won't just let themselves be usurped. It's their oldest trading partner. Like Mexico and Canada are to the United States. If America wanted to just usurp Mexico, I'm sure these guys would be fine with it.
And the U.S. obviously wanted him out. A lot of people wanted him.
Because he was setting up Ukraine to be sucked back into Russia and the people to be subverted.
I thought they would have a less corrupt government. A lot of liberal people participated in Maidan. And what they got was a combination of the most corrupt government in Europe, the ninth most corrupt country in the world right now.
Ukraine.
Yeah, by the way, neither of these guys thinks China or Russia are corrupt. Just to clarify, they're not on the list.
The IMF just dumping money in Ukraine. The IMF just dumping money in at Joe.
You mean to help them actually get on their feet as a breakaway republic post 1991 breakup of
command. In Biden's first speech in Kiev in February 2015, he said, "I told the IMF to give them a loan," and the money went straight out to Swiss bank accounts and.
Yeah, that was one of the problems they had and why they had to work with it, because Russia was subverting the entire country. They were sucking money out of the place. And the idea was, we want the money to go to the actual Ukrainians. And that took a while. That's why we only gave them pillows and blankets, and we didn't give them weapons until we trusted the leadership. And now Zelensky, who I believe Jimmy, if I'm not mistaken, will refer to as a neo-Nazi, even though he's a Jewish grandson of Holocaust survivors, was when we felt safe enough to know that if we gave money to Ukraine, it would actually benefit the people.
Offshore, they put a billionaire in power in Kiev, and hit the street muscle were literal neo-Nazis like the Azov battalion.
By the way, this is his that's the part I want to get to. You said the magic word, neo-Nazis. That means they're the people who are running the things right now are neo-Nazis. Never mind the fact that Russia was inserting these groups in to undermine the government after the Euromaidan.
Ideologically and militarily motivated battalion incorporated into the National Guard, and they went east and started fighting with those on the map that are labeled as separatists, who are actually
those on the map who are labeled as separatists. They're only and by the way, it's rude that they're labeled that way, because all they try to do is break off chunks of the country and give it to Russia.
Russian speakers who are Ukrainian,
right? So
who are being terrorized.
Yeah, it's Russian speakers. I mean, honestly, Arizona, Texas has a lot of Spanish speakers in it, and there are a lot of Spanish speakers in northern Mexico. And all we're saying is that we should be able to seize parts of Mexico because they speak the same language as a lot of the same people in Arizona and Texas, right?
So what's happening is there's a big neo-Nazi. I'm gonna explain all this in this.
Yeah, tell us all about it, Jimmy. Tell us about the neo-Nazis that run Ukraine right fucking now.
But it's just to give you a thumbnail, then we'll go into it.
Yeah.
So
please.
Big part of the Ukraine military is neo-Nazis for real, right? And it's called the Azov.
No, not a big part. Also more aligned with the separatist regions, but go ahead.
Is one of them. And I think the number 2 guy in charge in Ukraine is a freaking neo-Nazi. And
number 2 works right up against the Jew who runs the joint.
They're fighting right over here. Let me just finish this video. And
finish the video. Is it Abby Martin? Let Abby Martin explain it. 1/3 of the region where the fighting is going on is the separatists that Putin has recognized. Yeah, tell us all about it.
Over here since 2015, they've been shelling 14,000 people, and the people here all speak Russian.
Yeah, that's all they're doing. They're shelling people, just people. They're just shelling people for speaking Russian.
And a lot of them identify.
One thing to keep in mind is that the separatists lay claim to all of Luhansk and Donetsk, not just the 1/3 they control now.
Right. They lay claim to the parts that they're trying to seize.
Confirm that Russia's recognition of the independence of these so-called people's republics also includes their claim to that extra territory. Now, President
Right. So what?
made another big move. He's ordered Russian soldiers to go into the separatist areas.
Yeah, it's a good move. He ordered Russian soldiers to go into the separatist areas because the troops he already sent in and the Russian-backed separatists that he sent in have laid claim to the area. So it's a smart move to roll more people in.
We've been speaking to.
Yeah, they're peacekeepers, guys. They're there to keep the peace from Belarus and Crimea. They're there to keep the peace. That's why they have thermal bombs.
So, has he ordered soldiers into those areas?
Nah, there's no. He hasn't ordered soldiers in.
There's discussion of it. The Russian Duma has authorized force if necessary, but those photographs were not of any Russian.
No, that was bullshit. That was just the media making up a story.
Official Russian forces operating within the Donbass region. There is currently no evidence that Russian forces have entered the Donbass region.
Yeah, there's nothing. I mean, I don't know why the news. This is 4 days ago, by the way. So this is kind of fun to watch. Like, has he done maybe he's done a correction on this. Maybe.
Although there are lots of claims and rumors, and but that
claims and rumors. It's probably bullshit, though. It's probably the corporate media.
Seems to be inaccurate right now.
So just so people understand what's happening, this is Ukraine. This is the part that we're talking about right here, the Donbass, and it's made up of these two different provinces.
By the way, notice in Dipshit's map that Crimea is included in Ukraine in his little picture right here. Look at that. It's got little hash marks in it like, oh, it's disputed. Like they didn't fucking seize it. And why did they seize it? I talked about it this morning on the morning show. Because oil and gas has been found in this area, and they got half of it just by seizing Crimea, along with the other tactical benefits of the area.
And just so you get a little bit more, in the west of Ukraine,
it's closer to Russia, so it's easier to seize. Hey, fucko, by the way, this is farther away from Russia, and they've seized this area on the border of Moldova. It doesn't matter. Fuck it.
Pro-European. They speak Ukrainian, and they look at Russia with suspicion. And then
this is math. What you're seeing here. This describes all of it. They're close to Russia. They're native Russian. Looks at Russia through the lens of shared history. So if the soldiers want to roll in there and kill anybody that doesn't want to move the country back to Russia, then they just got to take one for the team.
East over here, they're closer to Russia. They're native Russian. They speak Russian, and they look at Russia through the lens of a shared history.
Yeah, they look at it. They read little stories, and then their house gets run over by a tank.
So the neo-Nazi Ukraine regime has been
Yes, the neo-Nazi Ukraine regime right fucking now, with the Jewish president, the neo-Nazi regime. It's a regime, guys. And you know how Jimmy feels about regime change. He's for it,
terrorizing those people in Donbass.
Yeah. They've been terrorizing the people in Donbass. The poor Russian military guys who've been sent over there to carve off the region, they're terrorizing them. By the way, you're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. Thank you.
Oh,
like, subscribe, thumbs up.
What Putin did was recognize that area as its own.
Yeah, he just recognized it. He was like, hey, that looks like a part of Russia. That looks a lot like, you can't even really tell. It's all like flat, and there's lots of blown up tanks in that area. It looks like Russia to me. Okay.
Country now, right? And so that's going to it could trigger a war between Russia.
Yeah, it could trigger a war. So you might want to slow roll that kind of a thing. No?
Ukraine. And a big part of it is he doesn't want NATO. He doesn't want Ukraine to become part of NATO. And that.
Fuck him then. Here's how Ukraine was not part of NATO. Now it's gonna be. That's gonna fucking happen. There's no way Ukraine doesn't end up as part of NATO. Even if they slice it in fucking half and half of it joins NATO, that's how this works from now on. You don't get to surround a fucking country, pound it with bombs and weapons, and drive armored columns of tanks through the streets, and then go, all right, if we leave, you guys promise not to get help next time? Piss off.
Pushing for it, so that's part of it. But here.
By the way, who gives a shit if they're pushing for it? It's Ukraine's choice. The fact is that all this violence is based on the idea that Putin thinks it should not be Ukraine's choice. They should be free as any other country to join a treaty or not. And they didn't feel like they needed to join the treaty up to this point. They were offered entry in 2008. And they were back and forth about it. Maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. And now they're like, well, fuck yeah, that we should have said yes a long time ago.
So here's what Joe Biden said after President Putin recognized the Donbass as being a...
Yeah, he just recognized them. That's all he did. He just looked.
So I'm going to begin to impose sanctions in response far beyond the steps we and our allies and partners implemented in 2014. And if Russia goes further with this invasion, we stand prepared to go further as with sanctions. Who in the Lord's name does Putin think gives him the right to declare new so-called countries on territory that belonged to his neighbors. This is a flagrant violation of international.
By the way, Jimmy thinks this is a gotcha because of past U.S. policy under, say, George W. Bush, or the idea that we went to war with other countries. At no point, I would like to point out, at no point has anybody, at least on the Democratic side of the aisle, where there's some debate about whether Trump actually wanted this or not, suggested that we make Afghanistan the 51st state, or Iraq the fucking 51st state, or that even that Guantanamo is now U.S. territory, and therefore we can, that part of Cuba is now ours, and we can set up any kind of system we want there. There's a wholly different choice here. There's one thing to go to war, whether you think it's justified or not. It is an entirely different thing to say, we now own that country, especially in the modern era. We've had stable borders in this country and in all of South America and North America for fucking 120 years.
Law and demands a firm response from the international community.
Now, if I could write that funny, I'd be famous.
By the way, he thinks this is ironic because he'll tell us. Okay.
That is just some of the fun. As he's occupying Syria, right?
We are not occupying Syria right now. Like, that's just weird.
Anyway, so this is what Aaron Mate tweeted out. He said, for the U.S. project of...
And by the way, I still don't know why, and this is a side note, why this is called the Jimmy Dore Show. Because all Jimmy Dore does for a show right now is farm other people's opinions. He showed that the headline of that op-ed, never delved into it. Remember what I said about paragraph 3. Anytime you see an article, at least get down to paragraph 3, or if it's USA Today, paragraph 5 or 7, because that's when you'll get the yeah buts, and that's kind of crucial to whether or not it's as firm and ideal as you think, judging by the headline. All he does is fucking farm other people's stuff. Right now, Max Blumenthal is apparently sitting in a hotel room waiting for Jimmy to just throw him back up on the screen as his, like, confirmation bias sponsor.
Ukraine into a vassal state while pretending to care.
For the U.S. project of turning Ukraine into a vassal state while pretending to care about its sovereignty, you couldn't pick a worse face than the guy who helped organize the coup of 2014. Or, yes, Biden organized the coup of 2014. Yes, the Euromaidan was all Joe Biden, right? And then got his son a lucrative gas company board seat in the immediate aftermath. Okay, again, up to that point, very corrupt country. After that point, functioning country. One of the reasons why Putin wants to push in is because he could no longer control it with corruption.
Its sovereignty. You couldn't have picked a worse face than the guy who helped organize the coup in 2014 and then got his son.
Kids, do I ever pull up someone's like confirmation tweet or something like that? Let me know if I ever do, where I pull up somebody's thing and read it randomly. Not like the charts and shit that I bring up, but like somebody's opinion piece and go, see, I told you their opinion's like mine and therefore must be true.
A lucrative gas company board seat in the immediate aftermath. So this is the guy talking about the...
By the way, this is the Hunter Biden laptop bullshit story and the idea that Burisma, he's selling the exact same storyline that Trump did.
The sacred sovereignty of Ukraine. And what did they...
Yeah, and at this point, there's no evidence that Russia's going to invade.
Did he do and the Obama administration?
Yes, and by the way, if anybody thinks that I'm just, picking on this fucker or something, this video has 539,000 views already. Jimmy has almost 1 million subscribers. Jimmy is an avowed Marxist left of Bernie Sanders with a $1.4 million house.
They engineered a coup of the democratically elected.
No, they fucking well didn't. That's just a lie. He keeps saying this also because other people have called it a coup. The Euromaidan was not a fucking coup.
Government in Ukraine and replaced it with a neo-Nazi regime. And I'm not making that up. Here it is.
Yes, you are. Leaked audio reveals embarrassing U.S. exchange in Ukraine and EU. By the way, that's Russian leaked audio, but let's see what it says. I think I know what I'm talking about.
To show you the level of meddling. I mean, the level of meddling that the United States has not only done in Ukraine, but Russia.
Terrible. Is just amazing.
So this is...
Okay, so this is the level of meddling in Ukraine is terrible. Also, by the way, like and subscribe, give a thumbs up. If you hate what I'm doing, please give a thumbs down. And trolls, I know we've got some today. Thank you for writing something in the comment section. It really helps because that tells the algorithm that I'm engaging and raises my CPM. So thanks very much, especially on Facebook, more than almost any other place. Trolls, if you write something in the chat, that makes me money more than any other primary thing. So thanks very much. All the people who write because they want to and have something positive to add to the conversation, I appreciate you as well. But we always like to tip the hat to the trolls.
Leaked audio reveals embarrassing U.S. exchange on Ukraine. So this is back in 2014 when the United States was picking who was going to be in power in Ukraine. And
is that what we were doing? We were picking who's good. We picked it. We picked who's going to be in power. All right.
Leaked conversation appeared certain to embarrass the United States and seemed designed to bolster charges from Russia, among others, that the Ukrainian opposition is being manipulated by what?
Leaked appeared is a big word.
Which President Obama's administration strenuously disputes. So the charge that Russia was making...
Right. So the Obama administration strenuously disputing this charge from a leaked audio that was leaked by the Russians, which may or not be the entire conversation. That's the fun part. That's to be denied full. That's ridiculous. But whatever Putin said, we should take it face value.
That these people who want to overthrow the government in Ukraine that was democratically elected, and that...
Yeah, they were democratically elected. With the help of Paul Manafort.
Was friendly to Russia more so than to the Europe.
Yeah, they were friendly to Russia. And Russia just needs more friends.
Union, that the people who oppose them were being manipulated by the United States. Turns out...
Oh, dear God, no.
They were, and the audio clip, which I'll play in a second, posted on Tuesday but gained wide circulation on Thursday, appears to show the official Assistant Secretary of State...
Appears. That's interesting.
Victoria Nuland weighing in on the makeup of the next Ukrainian government. Nuland is heard telling U.S. Ambassador Jeffrey Hyatt that she doesn't think Vitaly Klitschko, the boxer turned politician who is a main opposition leader, should be in a new government. So here it is. Listen to this.
Okay, this is going to be good. Here we go.
I don't think Cleach should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea. When I talked to Jeff Feltman this morning, he had a new name for the UN guy, Robert Seri. So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it. And, the EU.
And she at the end says, and, F the EU. She says that the...
Right, because they were ready to split the baby because Germany was, in the process of getting their energy from Russia. That's why the fuck the EU part of it. Secondarily, okay, he plays a little more of it. Okay, hold on.
She says, I think Yashinthyuk is the guy who got the economic experience, the governing experience. What he needs is Klitschko and Tahenbach on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week, Nuland said in the recording.
Yeah, they're not making that happen. She's just telling you what they think would be best or who they think they'd be working with. And if we're going to fund some of this, we want trustworthy people. They didn't make the ultimate decision.
So we literally did that, right? So we engineered.
No, we literally did not. That's why it says appears to, because they made their own decisions.
We backed, we funded, all that stuff.
Yes, the democratically elected move away from Russia.
And they're neo-Nazis. Right?
Yeah. Yes. By the way, yes. Vladimir Zelensky was put in place by neo-Nazis. The vast majority of Ukrainians are neo-Nazis. The separatists just want to be close to Russia where they can be away from the nasty neo-Nazis.
And,
well, not all of them. I mean, you have a coalition.
No.
You have...
Max runs in to run interference. They're not all neo-Nazis.
So there's a big faction. There's a big...
Tian...
It's a big faction of neo-Nazis. It's not this... it's not a little separatist region of neo-Nazis.
represented the ultranationalist, fascistic, neo-Nazi part of this coalition. He's from the Social National Party, which carries some interesting undertones in its name. And that's why Victoria
Oh yeah, yeah. The National Socialists, you mean?
Nuland, who is now the top official.
By the way, he inverts those as if they wouldn't invert in English to avoid that.
Overseeing Ukraine and Russia policy in the Biden State Department wanted him on the outside because he was too embarrassing to have on the inside.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, the neo-Nazi guy that they couldn't exclude because we don't have control over it. They were like, we'd rather that guy not be part of the interior of the government because he seems like a bad dude. We can't necessarily broom him entirely, but we'd rather him be on the outside. And apparently that's bad because it eats this narrative.
They got Yatsenyuk, who was just this billionaire liberal technocrat, totally corrupt, in power. Klitschko was like a professional boxer who became famous. He's like the Ukrainian Schwarzenegger. So they wanted
Was that an edit? The
him
flash
outside because he wasn't really
he probably cough button.
sharp enough. So yeah, you see the U.S. neocon officials of the Obama administration who are totally back in power.
Totally.
In the Biden administration. She's talking about Jeffrey Feltman.
Totally.
He's now in charge of Ethiopia, Eritrea, the Horn of Africa. They're all back in power, and they're trying to manage the situation again, but it's spun out of control. And here you have them on a leaked.
Yeah, that's what. By the way, they were trying to manage Ukraine, and it spun out of control. And what spun out of control means is that 8 years ago, or whatever, 12 years ago now, the European Union or NATO floated the idea that eventually Ukraine could be part of that. And the Biden administration came in and they were trying to manage the past. And Putin just responded to the fact that he just realized that this had happened over a decade ago. And they're trying to manage it while he surrounded the country with troops and started moving the troops in and bombing the place, and it spun out of control. It just
or
spun.
a hacked call or whatever you want to call it.
Yes, the hacked call. You mean the edited call?
Deciding who runs the Ukrainian government. So it's so absurd when people say,
and I love how he's like, see, Max just sort of said what I sort of said, this thing sort of said, so it must have said it.
oh,
Good Lord.
Putin is attacking an independent and sovereign Ukraine. It is a U.S. neo-colony. That is all it is. I mean,
yeah, that's all it is. I don't know. And as somebody needs to tell the Ukrainians this. Do these people know that they're dying just to be a U.S. neo-colony? Do you realize that? That they're running up and throwing Molotov cocktails at Russian tanks, and they're standing in front of tanks in groups and by themselves just to be a neo-colony of the United States? I mean, this would be a terrible thing for them to find out. Someone should blare this. Someone should blast this over the fucking airwaves.
That doesn't justify, that would in itself justify an attack on it. But let's do it.
No, that alone, just that they're a neo-colony, wouldn't justify Russia rolling in. But all the other stuff lined up, the fact that there's neo-Nazis that Putin put in himself and that they've been brooming for a decade or so, that shouldn't matter, right?
With this idea that Ukraine is somehow independent. And we can talk.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. It's clearly a U.S. colony. And we need to, and all these people are just dying to be the 51st state.
How peaceful it is, too. It's far from that either.
So let's just.
Yeah, it's not peaceful. And that's the Ukrainians' fault, okay? If they would just let the separatists have a chunk of their country and give it to Russia, there wouldn't be all this fighting until the next chunk.
A little bit of the hypocrisy after you know the history.
Canada and our allies will defend democracy. We are taking these actions today.
And by the way, they think that's funny because of the trucker convoy and them shutting down crowdfunding in that country. By the way, this isn't the United States. Canada has no strength or pull in this particular part of it. I mean, they're part of NATO, and it's good because they're gigantic as a country. But this is a gotcha. This is a gotcha.
Stand against authoritarianism.
And again, what's the cackling? And by the way, there's a huge difference between shutting off crowdfunding sources that where foreign money is being funneled into a group of truckers shutting down your roads or shutting down your capital, and calling and then arresting people who are illegally protesting and towing their trucks away, and they'll all get their day in court, versus armed columns rolling into Ukraine. This is a distinct difference. And again, but to Jimmy, this is the lesser of two evils. And the lesser of the two evils, by Jimmy and Max Blumenthal's decision-making process, I suppose, is the Russian invasion. That's the lesser of the two evils. The worst is the fact that the truckers are getting their rigs towed.
So that's funny. And then and then the establishment got their butt buddy.
Whoa. I'm sorry, they're what?
So that's funny. And then and then the establishment got their butt buddy, Bernie Sanders. Bernard Sanders is.
Oh, all right. Well, all clearly anti-gay slander aside, their butt buddy, the establishment butt buddy. That's his description of Bernie Sanders. There you go. And this should be a lesson more to the Bernie Sanders and the AOCs of the world, that if this is who you think your friends are, if this is who you think are going to, help you get and stay elected, or actually get you, to get whatever goals you have policy-wise to actually happen, you're wrong. This is who you're working with. Centrists are the problem, but these guys they've got your back. That's kind of amazing, considering how this asshole, and by the way, the idea that Justin Trudeau is an authoritarian leader on league with Vladimir Putin. This whole video, the purpose of it is to defend Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine as being totally justified. And his attack points so far beyond Obama, which we knew and all that kind of stuff, wholly Democrats, and never bringing up, and so far anyways, the Bush administration, Reagan, Iran-Contra, Vietnam, any of that kind of stuff. It's all because Obama, existed, is to attack Justin Trudeau and Bernie Sanders. That's amazing.
These actions today to stand against authoritarianism.
And he does the fake laugh all the time. And as someone who genuinely laughs, I find it particularly annoying.
So that's funny. And then the establishment got their butt buddy, Bernie Sanders. Bernard Sanders is a very good boy. He said Vladimir Putin's latest invasion of Ukraine is an indefensible violation of international law, regardless of
what. And also, why is that fucking funny? That's kind of odd. You know what I mean? That you can think that he's being, manipulated. You can think that that's a bad read or whatever. But the assertion of what Bernie Sanders is for the establishment, which is bizarre and ridiculous, and then stacking on top of that statement is hilarious.
whatever false pretext he offers. There's always been a diplomatic solution to this situation. Tragically, Putin appears inept on rejecting it. It's
intent on rejecting it, but okay.
Literally the United States is the people who aren't negotiating, just like Trudeau wouldn't even meet with the protesters.
Well, no, we're not going to negotiate on behalf of another country's ability to make their own determinations when they are a sovereign state. If Ukraine wants to join NATO or asks to join NATO, they will be able to join on the merits. They couldn't right now, even if they wanted to, because you can't have a border dispute in your country and be a part of NATO. That's why Russia recognized the Donetsk regions. The Donetsk and Luhansk regions are recognized because that would be a violation of the NATO joining charter, because you can't have that actively. You got to settle that before you can join NATO. And so by making it permanently unsettled, by making it a permanent war front, by never settling it for a long time, they were keeping, Ukraine out of NATO. And now they want more land, the disputed territories, because that will continue to be part of this for a long time.
To ask what their demand were.
No, he went into hiding.
He went into hiding. Same thing. It's the Ukraine and the United States that doesn't want to negotiate. And
yeah, why don't they want to negotiate? Why don't they just let themselves look? Just lay back and take it is the Jimmy Dore method.
I want to show you the level of meddling just to get you. This is from Yasha Levine's Substack. I just want to give you the level of meddling,
which Jimmy reads all the time as gospel,
that the United States did when the communists...
Hold on. Ewen Mary, U.S. Embassy official in Moscow during the 90s. Wayne Mary. Okay, hold on one second. Because you know how I am with getting them quotes. Wayne Mary. Okay. When is this? This is Yeshua Levine. We created... Let's see. Hold on. Maybe we'll do this. We created... And I'll see if that part comes up. Interviews. Yeah, here you go. Wayne Mary. This is an interview on Frontline. We talk about the fall of 1993, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we'll see where he's going with this, and we'll see if the takeaway is right. Here you go.
When the Soviet...
By the way, I would like to say, just point out as this is starting, we is in red and italicized and bigger. So obviously that's part of the point that's going to be made.
Right? And this is in the 90s. This is from the U.S. Embassy official in Moscow during the 90s. He said
the U.S. Embassy official in Moscow during, or a U.S. It's he's probably he's
the virtual open shop for thievery at a national level and for capital flight in terms of hundreds of billions of dollars and the raping of natural resources and industries on a scale which I doubt has ever taken place in human history.
So we did that on purpose, I guess. Let's see. Where would that be? We created. Let's scroll through this, shall we? So this is so push private government by decree. Unfortunately, since watching movie the wrong guys won, reaction was scale policy. Familiar to the Republican people, I think it's particularly demonstrated by the extent. So this is the second time the U.S. faced the choice of rule of law or our team. A huge cost to our reputation, if you will, as a government was preaching principle rule of law. People are committed to legal reform, constitutional practice, civil rights, perhaps much less optimistic the ability of Russia to make very rapid economic changes. Sometimes you simply had to choose. And unfortunately, with each passing crisis in post-Soviet Russia politics, the number of genuine Democrats who became disillusioned with American policy grew and grew. And ultimately, I think we lost most of them on the issue in the first war in Chechnya. Tell me about the war in Chechnya. Let's see. I was about to bury land in Chechnya. What is the attitude towards the United States? I think there's a great deal of Americans who are perceived to be idealistic, principled. In fact, no government ever actually is, and there was increasingly be unprincipled, conspiratorial, manipulative, excessively identify whatever. There were power centers, I think, is very closely associated with Here you go. I mean, this demonstrated every time Sherman did, and his political party would go to the polls, they were annihilated. As it to overstate things, focus particularly economic on Russia. What was the I'll find it. We're gonna find it in here, unless I missed it. If anybody spots that chunk, this bit right here, we created a virtual. Let's see. There's got to be a way. Like, isn't there a little search thing in these things? Hold on. To search a document. Let's see. It's down in here. Like. You can edit this out later. Just cut this out of the live stream. I'm just kidding. Analysis says practical under both ambassadors. This is a lot of stuff about how we were idealistic and we were trying to help them, and everybody thought they would just liberalize on their own. We had to lose our relationship with Russia for our own national interests. Obviously, the way we conducted ourselves with Russia would determine whether or not Russia would be willing to cooperate with us on the world stage. But the broader question, nature of economic force, okay, things you kept in mind. The robbing of Russia was not conducted solely exclusively by Russians, but there was a lot of foreign participation. Okay, so this, here it is. Yeah, there you go. What we had to lose in our relationship with Russia were our own national interests. This part of it right here. There we go. Let's dive into this. Let's see if this is America. What we did was we raped this country of its natural resources. This is the idea that's what you're supposed to take away. What we had to lose in our relations with Russia were our own national interests. And obviously, the way we conducted ourselves with Russia would determine whether or not Russia would be willing to cooperate with us on the world stage. But the broader question of the nature of economic reform in that country was one in which the United States played an important role. And we created a virtual open shop for thievery at a national level and for capital flight in terms of hundreds of billions of dollars and the raping of natural resources in industries on a scale I doubt has ever taken place in history. And I think it must be kept in mind that the robbing of Russia was not conducted solely and exclusively by Russians, but there was a lot of foreign participation. I mean, we've recently seen some of the scandals involving some of the money laundering that took place in New York, but colossal sums of money left Russia into places like Singapore and Switzerland and Cyprus and the Bahamas and the south of France and all sorts of places. And for example, overnight, some of the Baltic republics became major exporters of commodities that they did not even produce, and it was large amounts of things like nickel and chromium and diamonds and timber and other commodities started appearing in world markets throughout all kinds of nefarious mechanisms in which enormous numbers of people made enormous amounts of money. And a lot of the money is not in Russians' hands, it's in foreign hands. A lot of the people around the world profited enormously from the raping of the Russian economy. I think many people in Russia sense that this is true, and so much of the resentment in Russian electorate against these economic policies is divided between the anger they feel towards some of their own oligarchs, their own political leaders, and the anger they feel towards the outside world. Well, the who lost Russia is really very conceited reflection of a notion that somehow Russia is ours to lose. You've been quoted as saying the question of who lost Russia is not the right question, but the question of who robbed Russia is legitimate. Talk to me about that. Well, who lost Russia is really a very conceited reflection of the notion that Russia is ours to lose. This is the we part. By setting up an economic system and assuming that the democracy aspect of it would sort of take care of itself, it was naturalized to that. It's the same mistake we made with China, that you can't turn them into Democrats. You can't turn them into a democracy. We didn't create this on purpose. We ignored the political aspect, is what Ewayne Mary's
we set
saying.
up in Russia after, and then here literally was Boris Yeltsin, weeks before he told anybody in Russia, he sent a private note to President Bill Clinton letting him know. Well, what was he going to let him know? He was letting him know that he was going to make it possible for Putin to be the next president. They're going to rig the election. And this is...
There's no election to rig. He was appointing his successor when he stepped down.
President Clinton said back. That's very good news. The only other thing I wanted to say was that we have had good contacts with Mr. Putin so far, and I look forward to meeting with him in Auckland. After that, we will stay in very close touch. I thank you for calling, Boris. So there you go.
Yeah. Oh, so he wrote him a note, and in the note he fucking wrote him, he said, "Thanks for calling." You sure this isn't a transcript of a fucking phone call? Oh my God. Hold on. It says this guy. And then, hold on. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Yeltsin, Putin, Clinton. Let's see what it's yeah. Okay. Transitions in here. Okay, so scroll yeah. Putin's there he goes. Okay. Putin's a solid man. That's what he told him in this one. So this is from Radio Free Europe. This is from 2018. Putin's a solid man. Declassified members offer window into Yeltsin-Clinton relationship. A few items are missing, but readers can see how Yeltsin secretly told Clinton how Putin became his hand-picked successor. Secretly told Clinton how Putin became his hand-picked successor, and just how concerned U.S. officials were about Putin's ascendancy, the rollback of post-1991 reforms and re-centralization of power in the Kremlin. They were worried about this dude. Clinton didn't tell him. He told Clinton. And then, bink, the man who became the first senior party boss to quit the Communist Party, who faced down communist plotters from atop an armored personnel carrier and signed the breakup of the Soviet Union, chose a historic New Year's Eve to make his grand exit and try to assert control over a succession battle that could determine Russia's future for years to come. This is about Yeltsin wanting to be the kingmaker. By appointing Mr. Putin acting president today at a private Kremlin ceremony with a personal blessing by Alexei to the patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church, Mr. Yeltsin seemed to try to put a lock on Mr. Putin's succession to the presidency in an election that will be there 3 months from now on March 26th. According to the Russian Constitution, Mr. Putin will remain prime minister. Clinton didn't tell him he was going to happen. That was a phone call where they were like, okay, yeah, okay, that's the guy you're going to pick? Okay, well, all right, he seems fine. I guess we'll talk to him. We've had good talks. It was like water cooler conversation. Fucking hell.
So they're literally, Boris Yeltsin's getting permission.
No, literally he's fucking not.
To appoint Putin as president of the country and rig the election just like they did for him, and they did it.
As I did for him.
And the shocker in this exchange is that Clinton gives Yeltsin tacit approval to rig an election and put
That's not a fact from it. That's his opinion.
Putin in power. Okay, so
that's not even a logical reading of what the fuck he put up there.
Just so you know this, I mean that we could talk all day about the level.
No, you fucking can't. I'm already. You're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide, by the way. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Give a thumbs up. Share the show. I'm new on the block, and these assholes have been around for a long time, and this is fucking embarrassing that this is what passes for discourse on these issues.
Of meddling the United States has done in Russia, which is why it's so...
Yeah, we didn't meddle in that. Yeltsin picked his own successor because he wanted to. He put the the KGB dude in.
Hilarious that everybody's been clutching their pearls for the last 5 years about Russian involvement in our elections. It's really black is
no, it's distinctly different.
Right, up is down and in is out. So
yeah, as part of that deal, Jimmy.
Yes, Roman Abramovich was working for Yeltsin and recommended Putin. Yes, they were creating their own power base. Pez dispenser of control, and they weren't happy about the dissolution of the USSR, and so there were a bunch of people like, we'll put a strongman in place.
Boris Yeltsin asked Clinton to defend his invasion of Chechnya, or his incursion into Chechnya, and Bill Clinton proceeded to compare Boris Yeltsin in Chechnya to Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War, very publicly. So,
hold on. Clinton, Yeltsin, Abraham Lincoln. That should be fairly easy to find, right? I'm going to trade compliments, play down differences. Moscow with hugs and handshakes. Yeltsin traded warm compliments and played down nagging differences on Sunday, insisting that their election year summit was not influenced by presidential politics. Both leaders facing re-election battles, Clinton and Yeltsin, would not even entertain the possibility of a communist comeback in Russia. I'm sure that I will be victorious. Yeltsin boomed at the Kremlin news conference with Clinton. That makes my answer irrelevant, doesn't it? Clinton said with a smile. The Yeltsin under fire for the bloody fighting in the breakaway Republic of Chechnya. Clinton expressed sympathy with Russia's position, compared the situation to America's Civil War. Clinton said Abraham Lincoln gave his life for the proposition that no state had a right to withdraw from our nation, and so the United States has taken the position of Chechnya as a part of Russia. This was, and by the way, this is not, insofar as I know, Chechnya had newly started to pull away, but that became another thing. As to whether summit would help politically, Clinton said it's a great mistake to put too much of the political spin on, since typically foreign policy does not play a big role in voting patterns. After 5 hours of talk, Clinton and Yeltsin reported progress in resolving. So he didn't call him Abraham Lincoln. He just said that that's the position he's in, not like he's got the same traits as Abraham Lincoln. He's like, he's in the situation where, Lincoln said no state has the right to break away. Right.
Compare that to the U.S. rhetoric about Putin recognizing breakaway republics as independent.
Well, in this particular case, Chechnya was breaking away, and this was the breaking away of a section of another country. So it's wholly different. A part of your own country tries to break away. It's a different situation than if a country that you are not a part of has pieces of that you're trying to steal. That would be very distinct.
And so we helped engineer a coup.
No, we fucking well did not.
Through the democratically elected government in Ukraine.
They have a democratically elected government.
We helped do that. And a big part of that government is interwoven into their government is neo-Nazis. It's
yes. Zelensky's a neo-Nazi. The people are there fighting for, this. Basically, all the people in Ukraine are fighting right now to support neo-Nazism. Yeah.
So after that, there was a ceasefire, right? And so they had the
Minsk. And there was no ceasefire. They tried to make one. The Russians were insisting on one so that they could move in and take more territory.
I don't know why I can't say that. Minsk agreements. And there was supposed to be a ceasefire, a military withdrawal, and there was supposed to be elections held in rebel-held areas, but none of that happened, right? They never stopped shelling, and there wasn't a military withdrawal, and there was...
Yeah, a ceasefire is always one side's fault.
Elections in rebel-held areas, right? So, again, it was Ukraine government, meaning, the proxy of...
You mean the actual fucking government of Ukraine?
United States and Europe that were breaking the agreement, correct, Max?
Yeah, Max, it was the Ukrainian government that didn't want parts of their country to break away. Were really just acting as a proxy for the United States and Europe by trying to stop it and participating in the Minsk agreements, and the ceasefire failure was their fault.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was the Ukrainian government that broke the agreement, shelling.
Shelling the people who were shooting.
The Donetsk and Luhansk republics, prompting them to form their own self-defense militias. And if you actually look...
Oh, that's what it was. So they were shelling these areas, and they had to form these self-defense militias, made up, of course, of Russian operatives. And it's self-defense. They're the breakaway. They're trying to carve off a chunk of the country, but they had to defend themselves, just like the South had to defend itself.
UN statistics
another civil
on
war.
Deaths, casualties. The lion's share is on the side of those in the Russian-speaking republics that comprise the region of Donbass. So 81% of deaths between 2018 and 2021 of civilian casualties were in the Donbass region. And so this is...
Wait a second. You're telling me that 80% of civilian deaths from warfare in Ukraine took place in the breakaway regions where the Russian separatists were engaging in all-out war to carve off a piece of the country? I would be shocked if it was flip-flopped. I'm just wondering why 20% of the war deaths happened in the part that was just a real country.
Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, bombing an area that the U.S. media and U.S. government considers Ukraine. But when he bombs them...
It is Ukraine.
And shells them with artillery and kills civilians, the U.S. media and the think tank hacks and the Biden administration, and before that the Trump administration, they refer to that population as Russian separatists. And they basically...
Those people refer to themselves as Russian separatists.
Delete them as Ukraine.
He just called. Putin just recognized these areas as separate from the fucking country.
Yes. But
what
now
is this?
That Putin has been poised to recognize that population as independent.
And also, what the fuck is with Jimmy's like, yes, tell me how the United States is evil. Tell me how this is all the United States' fault. Right? Yes, Max, let your words wash over me. That the civilians being killed by the Russian separatists just have it coming because they're sock puppets for the United States. But the Russian little green men who are killed because they're firing from areas, god damn, this is stupid.
Place them under the protective umbrella of his military to stop these attacks, along with an assault on their language and their religion. And
yeah, that's what it is. This is bigotry.
Heritage. They are referred to as Ukrainians. So the U.S. would never have said, oh, Zelensky was bombing his own people, the way they said that about Gaddafi or Assad. And now they're claiming.
Well, that's because these areas are very distinctly full of people that they can identify as being Russian separatists. The fucking fact that Putin just recognized these areas as land held by Russia, effectively, is why people recognize those areas. It's not just strafe bombing neighborhoods.
Oh, these are just Ukrainians. When for years, the humanity of these people and their national identity was completely erased. I mean, the hypocrisy is staggering.
So here's what you were talking about. According to UN figures from 2018 to 2021, 81.4% of the civilian casualties in the Donbass war came in rebel-held territory. 16.3% were in Ukrainian government-controlled territory. So the point...
Yes, the group that is trying to steal the land, who is killing anybody who doesn't want them to do it on the land, and is firing at the people who are trying to keep them from stealing the land, are going to suffer the largest number of casualties. What the
he's
fuck?
Making is the same one you are, is that the people who are being killed
are the ones in the war zone.
Here are Ukrainians in the rebel-held area. So it's not... it's the Russian-speaking Ukrainians in the Donbass. It's not the people in...
No, it's not. There is no distinction of who's being killed because a bunch of these people are Ukrainians who go back and forth in the area and don't want the areas to be separated and have been murdered by Russians who are trying to steal the land. And they don't want anybody there who will, when they finally have a vote, will vote against the separation. They've been hunting those people down. They are among the dead. And it's not because they fucking speak Russian.
Government-held territory.
Good Lord.
So this is considered, like kind of a slaughter in a sense, right? And
no, it's not fucking considered a slaughter. It's a territory that's been embattled for a long time.
So in fact, here's another. My study showed, this is from Ivan Kachkanavsky. He says, my study showed the same. Ukraine has mainly not been fighting Russia's armed forces in the Donbass. The vast majority of rebel forces consist of locals.
Weird. And Russia has been moving people into those regions over the last little bit. I mean, they're newly local, but who gives a fuck?
So, in fact, here this is in Foreign Policy magazine. Crucially, however, Ukraine has mainly not been fighting Russia's armed forces in the Donbass. Yes, Russia has armed, trained, and led the separatist forces, but even...
Oh, yes, they've just armed, trained, and led them. Russia has armed, trained, and led them. But basically, the mass of them are people that they brought there, right?
Kyiv's own estimates, the vast majority of rebel forces consist of locals, not soldiers of the regular Russian military. Indeed,
Right. Nobody ever said that. There were sympathizers to King George still amongst the southern separatists that led to the Confederacy that wanted to go back to a royal-based system. Federalists were breaking away from a group that thought that the south part should be under a church-like leader like the king, ordained by God. There was still a lot of talk about that in the American South, instead of this whole election bullshit. And
armed forces engaged directly in the fighting only twice, in August, September 2020.
Only twice, when the majority of deaths occurred.
2014 and January, February 2015, with limited capabilities, although both episodes ended in crushing Ukrainian defeats.
On their own fucking land by Russian forces. Do you think for a fucking second that if you asked Max and Jimmy about America doing something exactly like that, they'd be like, what? What's the big deal?
So that so this idea that they're fighting Russian soldiers and all that stuff, they're not. They're fighting local.
They're fighting local militias, armed, trained, and led by the Russians, with a promise of reward, essentially, of land and goods if they take the region. You know, murder.
Ukrainians, and as you pointed out, when it's convenient for the United States to consider them Russian separatists, they're Russian separatists when Ukraine is bombing them. But then when Russia acknowledges their independence, they all become Ukrainians. So, and here's an interesting. Go ahead.
I actually just interviewed one of those fighters at the Gray Zone. You can just go to our YouTube channel, and he's actually a foreign fighter from Texas who volunteered with a.
Oh, I see. A local, then. A foreign fighter from Texas. You mean an American? The fuck? What? Who?
Our YouTube channel. And he's actually a foreign fighter from Texas who volunteered with a communist faction that formed a battalion within the.
What? Wait a minute. What the fuck? You just made the case that all these people are locals, and your one example of who you interviewed was a fucking Texan who's a communist who went there to what? Kill Ukrainians on behalf of Russia? What?
Donetsk People's Republic, and they fought against the Ukrainian regular military.
Yeah, asshole, not a local. What the fuck is that? How is an American from Texan, an avowed communist? Good Lord. What?
And the extreme right-wing militias. His name is Russell Bentley. They call him Texas.
Yeah, he sounds like a local. Russell Bentley. They call him Texas. He just came there to help the Russians murder Ukrainians. You're going to tell me this bullshit? Okay, I'm out. What the fuck? This is the root? What are you talking about?
Donetsk. And he fought with the Nova-Russian army, and he described to me what the situation was on the...
Wait, he fought with the Nova-Russian army. Good God. Did any of these assholes did they even hear the words coming out of their mouth? What the fuck?
There are no Russian forces there. Certainly Russia was supportive.
Yes, everyone's a local. What?
Of what they were doing. But they pulled...
There's basically foreign militias are attacking Ukraine on behalf of Russia.
Together, starting with pretty much nothing, and have become a pretty formidable fighting force. But these are just local people on the ground there.
Yes, local people from around El Paso. The fuck?
And they were supposed to, according to the Minsk agreements, they were supposed to stop shelling them. And
yeah, according to the Minsk agreement, with the Texas subsidiary of the Russian militia. What?
To take their military out. They didn't do any of those things. And so after 8 years.
Yeah. Ukraine didn't take any of their military out of Ukraine. And so what choice do Texas communists have but to fly to Ukraine and murder people in a country they're not even citizens of? I mean, honestly.
Of them not following the agreement, finally, Vladimir Putin recognized them as separate countries, right? That's what happened?
Yeah. He just went, look, there's Tex. Here's regular fellow. This is I know these fellas. Who can't spot them? Hold on. This calls for like a special guest star. Today we just want to, that's all we're doing here, man. We're just here to recognize the true Ukrainian bloodline that ricochets through El Paso, Texas. This is what we're doing, this type of thing. You know, many people have not followed, but the Tsars have a rich history in the Houston area.
Right?
This is very good.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I mean, he lost 10 friends.
Yes, I mean, what more could you possibly? This is obviously what's happening. Nothing says organic movement to fight back against oppression like asshole from Texas flying in and shooting your neighbor.
To shelling and attacks. Many other friends had their legs blown off, their arms blown off.
Well, and it's even worse because they're from America, and America has no health care.
Yesterday, when I interviewed him, they were shelled.
Wait a minute. Yesterday, you interviewed a dude from Texas who's in the Donetsk region fighting Ukrainians. Yesterday. Fucking yesterday. You wouldn't happen to have his phone number, would you?
Near where he lives 5 miles from the front lines. They were.
Well, it sounds, I'm not going to shit you. 5 miles from the front line, that's going to be noisy.
With Grad rockets, which is, for the first time in years, Grad rockets.
Really? Grad rockets, just out of fucking nowhere. Why would they do this? Why would the Ukrainians suddenly launch Grad rockets in retaliation for troops moving through the Donetsk and Luhansk regions? It's weird. All we do, we move a couple of battalions into these areas and open fire to, just test. We're just blowing up. We just want to see if the ground is hard. And they fired back at us for the first time in whatever.
As a message, I guess, to the Russians or.
Yes, it was. It was a message. It was a message. It was actually, we used a cootie catcher. We would go pick one of these things. It was kind of like, what part of your country would you like Tex to take a giant shit in? LVIV, and then we'd pick a color. Everybody picks purple. You're dead.
To the local population, but that's what they've been suffering for years, and that's just the military component. There's a political component, and the Russian-speaking population inside Ukraine has suffered massacres and oppression.
Yes, find the massacre. Jimmy Dore, we sent you massacre graphic. Go back to massacre graphic.
Example: the burning of protesters in the city of Odessa in broad daylight.
Dear God, burning protesters in broad daylight
by neo-Nazi forces.
Neo-Nazi forces are burning protesters in broad daylight. Well, it is cold there sometimes. I'm sure, Jimmy, pull up a picture. Show that. I mean, it's a nasty trigger warning, everyone. Trigger warning. He's going to show you a video right now. It's awful. Where they are stacking protesters like cordwood, and they're all singing a neo-Nazi theme song in Odessa.
Ran into a union hall and were burned alive by neo-Nazi forces after setting up a kind of Occupy tent-style protest. And we covered that.
So that's all they did. It was sort of like an Occupy Wall Street thing, but with Molotov cocktails. And then they ran into a building and were laying down covering fire or something. I'm sure it was simple. I'm sure it was that simple. Yeah.
Discussion. But this happened in broad daylight, and the U.S. and.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't want to do it at night. The light draws bears.
U.S. said nothing. So.
It's amazing. It's funny that you and Jimmy haven't said anything about this until just this second. And this happened many, many times ago.
Well,
and I see you're about to
Well, let me just
Expound on
give.
that.
Yes, pull up. He is going to expound on that. He's going to show the video. Max, get ready. Trigger warning. Here comes.
People
Let's do
some more
this.
background. 1 in 6 Ukrainians is an ethnic Russian.
That's right. So bloodline. Look, 1 in 6 Ukrainians are incapable of living in democracy. You can't do it. They must be fed back to Mother Russia. It's not in their genes, okay? 5 out of 6 we should have killed in the Holodomor, but we didn't get a shot. Hopefully, better luck next time.
1 in 6 Ukrainians is an ethnic Russian, and 1 in 3 speaks Russian as a native language.
That's weird. It's almost as if Ukraine had been usurped by Russia up until 1991, and 1991 wasn't that fucking long ago. Weird.
So a third of the country speaks Russian as their first language.
That's so weird. You know what I mean? So why not let them kill you?
Which is something. That's really something. So you see,
It is something. It is something. Something. I don't know what that something is. It might be that they're fucking old.
it's a complicated issue, and there's much more.
Yes, it's complicated. It's all cultural. You know what I mean? And most Russian speakers and ethnic Russians, they can't handle democracy, guys. This is wrong.
To go
Free
into.
markets kill them.
But here is a poll.
This is very exciting. I love polls. Well, only when they're not in NATO.
This is from As Per Reports. It says what Ukrainians feel. 70% reject one people thought, meaning that
They don't believe in ethnic Ukraine. They believe in a free Ukraine.
Ukrainians are all one. Even though that's what Zelensky said when he was running for office, he said that they were all one. 72% consider Russia a hostile state.
You're just going to breeze right past that, I hope. That's not 72. That's pretty fucking a little personally I feel hurt with this type of thing. You're just going to jump right
33.3% are ready to take.
Oh, wait, sorry. You're not going to expound on that, Jimmy Dore? Jimmy Dore, why are you not expounding? Expound a little. You go there.
When he was running for office, he said that they were all.
That's right. When Zelensky, the neo-Nazi Jew, when he was running for office, he said this. He said there are one people, and 70% reject this, even though he won the election by about that much. But thank you for expounding on that first detail. Now expound on the second.
72% consider Russia a hostile state. 33.3% are ready.
Wait, Jimmy, why you jump straight past that one? What do you mean hostile state? Why wouldn't you expound? It's weird. You start talking about that. What's this?
Take up arms against Russia. 21% are ready to stage civil resistance. 67% want to join the European Union.
67%. That's in the democracy. These are two big mandates. Russia's a hostile state at 72%. 67% want to join the EU.
But I mean, that also means that 33% don't, which is, and then
that's so weird that it does mean that 33% don't. Glad you brought that up.
Which is like 1 in 3. 59% want to join NATO, right? Which
wow, also a significant number. I mean, that's pretty high. I'm guessing if you ask that question now, the number is slightly higher.
And then again, 40% don't. So
yes, right. This is really about the not. You know what I mean? Don't get fooled by the big orange parts. By the way, Jimmy, just so you know, using your logic, 33% are ready to take up arms against Russia, but the 77% are too old, they're too small. 21% are ready to stage civil resistance against them, which means the rest of them are not. And yet, they want to be a part of the EU and they want to be part of NATO, and they view Russia as a hostile state. They just don't want to have to kill anybody who's Russian. I wonder if this poll is the same in the Kremlin right now.
I think we lost Max. I think we lost Max's.
Oh no! It's the text came for him.
Oh, here he's back.
No, you got me. I'm just letting some guests in.
Oh, okay.
So.
I didn't know what you were doing. So
don't do it.
So
Don't do it. I don't trust them. Don't let them in, Max.
I just want to give people a background. So now you get how many people are actually ethnic Russians. Oh, a third of the country.
Yes, and ethnic Russians cannot understand democracy. They don't have the capability for it. They are absolutely bred and born to be communist and or be serfs under czars. They can't, I mean, you can't have one or the other. You can't be those things and be okay with a government that reflects your values that you participate in. It's not possible.
Their first native language is Russian. And so did you see this, Max? I thought this was interesting. So this guy, Kit Clarenberg, tweeted out, he said, probably just a coincidence that a 2016 RAND paper, now RAND is the organization that
is Ron's son.
It works for the Pentagon, right? So they work for the Pentagon. It's a paper strategizing around war with China's stressed the need for a NATO buildup in Eastern Europe in order to take out Russia or at least prevent it from assisting Beijing. And months later, NATO troops arrived in the region in droves.
That's so weird in 2016 because months after that, Trump took them out. So good. It kind of evened out.
And so here, I'll see if we can read it. It's just NATO could neutral. So international response could, on balance, also favor the United States in a long and severe war. They're literally talking about war with Russia.
Well, you do realize that the RAND Corporation and the DoD, their entire job is to run games and figure out and deal with threats before they arrive. We do same thing. I'm just saying we do it all the fucking time. We bought an old piece of gear from you guys back in the 80s called the WOMP. And it didn't work so well for you guys, but we call him Joshua, and he's very good. A little robot friend of mine. He rolls around and he plays tic-tac-toe. Hopefully that's all he does.
Part of the U.S. and East Asian allies could hurt China's military chances. Responses of Russia in...
Oh, no. That's terrible. Hurting China's military chances. That's not what we're shooting for. You must undermine the freedom of the individual Chinese and put them under the Starbucks doctrine.
And NATO would have less impact. And NATO could neutralize Russian opportunistic threats in Europe. So
yes, neutralize Russian opportunistic threats in Europe. This sounds very suspect to me. This is what you are trying to do. It's very scary. You mentioned Novara. You know you can't, we don't want our threats neutralized before we ever get a chance to threaten someone. That sucks.
Go. So I'm going to talk more.
Hold on. Japan's entry would be likely if the nation were party to the underlying dispute and almost certain if its territory, where U.S. bases are, were attacked. With Tokyo's more permissive interpretation of constitutional limits on the use of force and programmed improvements in Japanese military capabilities, Japan's entry could make a difference by 2025, and the course and results of the heightened turmoil in the Middle East could be harmful to both Chinese and U.S. interests. What? Wait a minute. What the fuck are you hiding behind your weird shoulder in your French cuffs? Expect to not know that you are some sort of bourgeois freak pretending to be Marxist. You're not. This part seems weird that you didn't read this. Japan's entry could make a difference by 2025 in the course and results of heightened turmoil in the Middle East could be harmful to both Chinese and U.S. interests. Heightened turmoil in the Middle East could be harmful to both Chinese interests, Chinese and U.S. Why would they want to destroy this? It sounds like they're just working out every possible thing.
How bad the news has been reporting this, but
yes, I know my Russian accent is awful. I've been living amongst Americans in Ohio under the name Dave for a long time.
Is there anything? So I hope people are getting what's going on. I hope.
No one understands what the fuck you're on about. You have made nothing but sense. Hold on. Hi, I'm going to come back to normal on this. He has literally made no ground in any of this bullshit except to blather out a shitty version of Tucker Carlson's
I'm communicating nonsense. It, or Max and I are communicating it clearly. Again, it's
no. You're both just Putin apologists shitting this nonsense out. Max is pretending to know more than you are, but you are just cobbling together a bunch of bullshit. And even the people in your studio don't know what the fuck you are talking about.
The United States meddled in Ukraine. We we actually assisted a coup overthrowing the democratically elected
The fuck we did.
government. Now that government is infiltrated with neo-Nazis. They've never adhered to the agreement that we...
Yeah, why won't they stop shelling when they're being shelled? Why won't they just let Russia have the land? Why won't they
agreement
access
from 2014, which meant that they were supposed to stop shelling these people,
Yeah, stop shelling the people who were shooting the people.
In eastern Ukraine. They haven't done it. And so finally, after 8 years of them shelling the...
Excuse me, Jimmy, it's not eastern Ukraine. These are Russian separatist territories, and they have been recognized by Vladimir Putin before you have made this video.
Out of them, they've killed 14,000 people.
No, they didn't kill 14,000 people. There was a battle. 14,000 died. The majority of people died in those regions, but they weren't all separatists. The separatists killed a shit ton of Ukrainians who weren't on their side.
Putin says, hey, stop it. If you guys don't want to reach them, if you're not going to follow our diplomatic agreement, we're going to now say that we're recognizing them and we could...
Yeah, if you don't follow our agreement, which was one-sided and given by force under a different administration that allows us to take your land, then I'm sorry, but we're going to have to invade.
Help them militarily. So so this idea that somehow the United States are the good guys here, or we're protecting democracy, or that we have the right to sanction anybody over any...
P.S., by the way, all of Europe, even Switzerland is on board at this point. India and China both abstained from the UN Security Council vote rather than vote with us, but not for Russia. So the full vote went today. I don't know what the outcome of the full vote to sanction Russia was, but it made it through because these guys were like, all right, enough. I mean, we got to deal with these assholes, so we're not going to jump on board, but we're not going to back them either.
Is crazy and ridiculous.
No, it's fucking well not.
Anything else you want to add, Max, to this part?
Yeah, just the idea that there's a moral case for supporting Ukrainian democracy is ridiculous. I mean, when you...
Yes, the idea that there is a moral case for supporting Ukrainian democracy is ridiculous. You should just let them get run over by Russia because they have a full and free environment. What you want is Ukrainians to be jailed for protesting the same way Russians are. The Russian system is the winning system.
All of this
fucking hell.
3 TV.
By the way, these two guys, two of a former member of TYT, only broomed because one of TYT's supporters shot some cops, including one in the head and leaving him paralyzed forever and spitting on people and being an asshole. So they broomed him because they wanted to distance themselves from what they had basically fomented and created. Biggest supporters of Bernie Sanders that existed. And this is where they are now. Now, you can either believe that morally they've had this weird flip-flop over time, or you can know that this is who they always were, and they were never, they never meant well in any of this shit. It was a power
Stations were shut down by the Ukrainian government because they were considered pro-Russian.
You mean the RT stations?
Right.
And their station directors and owners were arrested and put on trial for sedition.
Right. Because they used to be a Russian puppet state.
No court process. They are arresting opposition figures. There have been opposition parties that have been considered pro-Russian. Their leaders are getting arrested. Activists.
Their leaders are getting arrested. The ones that are taking up arms.
Arrested, including gay rights activists have been attacked by these neo-Nazi militias. The Gay Pride Parade.
Yes, you mean the ones that are illegal in Russia because the neo-Nazis that you're talking about are actually Russian-backed?
Kiev it always comes under attack by these militias. Amnesty International said that no one is safe as long as these militias are rampaging across.
Militias, by the way.
Ukraine. Then you have the issue of corruption. You have the fact that
no one is safe as long as these militias are rampaging across Ukraine.
Ukraine has seen more outflow, migrant outflow, than any other country in Europe. It's become the poorest country in Europe. And that means that the East has.
Yes, because the Russians were trying to undermine the economy and kill it effectively so they could take it over.
Systematically de-developed. The Ukrainian government has sought to cause a.
And Jimmy is melting or peeling himself away.
Drought in Crimea by erecting dams to prevent them from accessing water on the other side because Russia annexed Crimea. The list goes.
Right. So they weren't going to take Ukrainian water if it's your fucking country, if you steal that land from us. What? Of course.
On and on and on. The official language of Ukraine was Ukrainian and Russian, and the Ukrainian Duma, this parliament that's overrun with ultra-nationalists, has moved to strip Russian.
By the way, you're an ultra-nationalist again if you don't let Russia take part of the country.
As an official language.
That's
the
the
Russian
standard.
Orthodox Church has come under attack. The church that most people follow in the East who are Russian-speaking. So it's an entire panoply.
By the way, the Russian Orthodox Church that you see in downtown Kyiv, that is one of the prettiest buildings down there. One of the ones, by the way, that Zelensky stood in front of to show that it's still standing and it hasn't been harmed.
Of attacks on this population that makes their life completely untenable within the U.S. and NATO neo-colony of Ukraine.
And isn't it interesting?
Oh, at least he's more generous. It's a U.S. and NATO neo-colony of Ukraine.
That
man.
People actually talk about a war with China and that this might have something to do with that, like to make sure we have a puppet state and we have our military accessible. Because look at these headlines. So Washington must prepare for.
Again, pivoting to Asia and forgetting about Europe isn't an option. This is an expert's point of view on current events argument. This is somebody's argument. This is Matthew Koenig's. It's blurry. Deputy Director for the Atlantic Council's Showcroft Center for Strategy and Security. So this dude's job is to game out geopolitical threats
with both Russia and China. What in the are you pivoting to Asia and forgetting about Europe? Isn't an This is really. Here's another one. What comes after a war on terrorism? War on China. What the F?
That's a question. That's a question mark. What comes after the war on terrorism? War on China? That seems to be a concern by Thomas Friedman, but I don't know the article. Let's see. Fuck, man, we've dealt with this bullshit so long. I'm now tired of just chasing his nonsense. What comes? Whoops, I can type. After the war on terrorism. There's something in there. This is September 8th, 2021. He wrote this out. Friedman, what comes, welcome to Times Press. Okay, shit. It's Chattanooga Free Press. Where is this? What comes after the war on terrorism? War on China? The U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan after a failed 20-year nation-building exercise left many Americans analysts saying, if only we knew back then what we know now, we'd go down that path. I'm not sure that's true, but it nevertheless raised the questions. What are we doing today in foreign policy that we might look back 20 years from now and say, if only we knew back then what we know now, we would have never gone down that path? That's it. Read full article. Fuck, man. He's against it. What are we doing in foreign policy that we might look back in 20 years from now and say, if only we knew back then what we know now, we would have never gone down that path? My answer can be summed up in one word: China. And my fears can be summed up in a few paragraphs. 40 years from 79 to 2019 were epic in U.S.-China relations, many ups and downs, but all in all, it was the epic of standing. The depth of U.S.-China's integration helped fuel much deeper globalization of the world economy. He's for it, essentially. The era of U.S. globalization left some U.S. manufacturers unemployed while opening huge new export markets for others. It lifted out of poverty hundreds of millions of people in China. In short, the relative peace and prosperity that the world experienced in those 40 years cannot be explained without reference to the U.S.-China bonding. For the past 5 years, though, United States and China have been stumbling down a path of de-integration and maybe towards outright confrontation. In my view, it is China's increasingly bullyish leadership style at home and abroad. That's not about us. The fuck? Does this asshole read anything he posts? And when was this article? When did this come out? 2021. Okay, yeah. These two giants went from doing a lot of business on the table and occasionally kicking each other under the table, doing a lot less business on the table, kicking each other a lot harder under the table. All right, but before we transition from co-opetition, all right, to confrontation with China, we should ask ourselves some hard questions. Why do we need to do this? Do we need to fight back? Like, he's actually worried about it. He doesn't want this. Fuck, this is dumb.
Here, America must prepare for war with China or...
David Sauer, opinion contributor. The views expressed by contributors are their own and not the views of the Hill. America must prepare for war with China over Taiwan. David Sauer. Okay, who's David Sauer? Hold on. Head of someone. Okay, hold on. America must prepare. Whoops. This is the Hill. This is the actual article. Let's see. Opinion. Okay. China's massive investment in the People's Liberation Army may show China is preparing to fundamentally change status quo. Taiwan is of vital geopolitical importance. Perhaps most importantly, Taiwan is the center for advanced semiconductor production. Time is not on our side, Taiwan minister said. By 2025, China will bring the cost attrition to its lowest. It has capacity now, but it will not start a war easily, having to take many other things in consideration. China's calculus about using force against Taiwan is a complex one involving but not limited to internal stability, Taiwan development's military dynamics. The Chinese Communist Party has created a popular nationalistic narrative. She will strive to ease tensions in Sino-American relations to ensure a successful Winter Olympics. Beijing does not want a Taiwan president to be succeeded in 2024 by her vice president, Lai Ching-te. Lai is a popular politician who is deeply committed to human rights and Taiwan sovereignty. Terrible. Okay. Oh, and by the way, this is how it goes on it. Taiwan needs to prepare its people for conflict, ensuring it has enough emergency supplies to survive a Chinese onslaught. Increasing Taiwan security services resources to gather intelligence on China, as well as to investigate and disrupt China's efforts to further develop and use fifth column forces in Taiwan, is also urgently needed. This is about protecting Taiwan, which he also probably,
over
like,
Taiwan. So people really, Russia keeps door open after
U.S. rejects key security. Guys, Russia's keeping the door open, okay? They're keeping it open. Russia. Now, granted, Jimmy is picking this clip and showing it. Russia keeps Jimmy door open. Maybe he takes this personally. I should get that was February 14th. Hold on. This is January 27th. Yeah, here it is. This is from the Union leader. Russia keeps door open after U.S. rejects key security demands. Moscow said on Thursday it was clear the United States was not willing to address its main security concerns, but kept the door open for further dialogue in their standoff over Ukraine. Meanwhile, Peskov said in Moscow, which has massed tens of thousands of troops near Ukraine, which is, just an act of good faith. Good Lord.
So, by the way, I just wanted to show you this. I just want to
show you I just want to show you this title that says they're keeping the door open. They're keeping it open, guys.
So do you think that that's true? That this has also something to do with the China war that they want to start?
They don't want to start it. They're worried about it starting.
Well, this has to do with the fact that the Pentagon and the entire national security state apparatus needs to constantly justify its budget, which keeps exploding.
No, it doesn't. We keep adding money, and we just got out of a war and we added money.
And
what are you talking about?
Beyond war on terror numbers,
thanks.
beyond not.
Hold on. Somebody asked in the super chat, so China, is that all you got? I know, Richard. This is fucking ridiculous.
11 numbers. And it's the perfect thing to justify all of their bureaucratic priorities. And by the way,
Yes, that's why they want war with China, China's an innocent victim in this, and so is Russia. They just want to. It's all about bureaucracy.
Pentagon
Good
budget, like over
fucking
50%
Lord.
is spent on contractors. It's spent on people who don't even, participate in any of these wars. It's just
Yeah, contractors that make shit. What?
it's military Keynesianism. So they have to maintain the threat. And whether it's Russia or China, the Pentagon is
Yeah, we made Russia do this.
one
Right.
of the most, if not the most powerful lobbies in Washington. They spend very little on actual lobbying, but they basically control the media.
Yeah, it's easy. They don't have to do any lobbying. Russia's doing all the lobbying for them. China's threats are doing all their lobbying. North Korea does a lot of lobbying for Lockheed Martin and Raytheon by launching missiles. It's amazing.
They have their tentacles
It's a product that sells
in the entire
security, the product that sells itself.
economy of Washington, the whole DC area, and the country. So this
Right.
speaks to,
Yeah.
and many of these people who are writing these op-eds you see in the Hill or
Max, you're even losing Jimmy at this point. He's lost.
the
He dozed
Washington
off.
Post.
Something happened.
Many of them are fellows at think tanks. Like the foreign policy op-ed was written by someone from the Institute for the Study of War. This is a think tank funded almost entirely by the arms industry, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, the companies that
It's weird. It's almost like Starbucks hires coffee tasters.
supplying the Javelin missiles to the Ukrainian military. Ukraine's basically like this giant dump for a bunch of American weapons that they'll never use. They haven't even
Yeah, they're not going to use any of these javelins. None of these weapons are going to be meaningful in this. They're just leaving them there.
taken these missiles out of their boxes. They're just sitting in warehouses.
Yeah, they haven't even, guys, they haven't even, let's see. U.S. javelins in Ukraine, tanks, something like that. Images. Let's see. That'll do something. Let's see. Ukraine war. Whoops. Hi. Green close. Ukraine war. Saint Javelin and the missile that has become a symbol of Ukraine's resistance. I like one of the dudes from the Lincoln Project's always posting a picture of this. Mary Magdalene, okay, related to Ukraine's. They're using these things. That's the Saint Javelin thing. There's gonna be, yeah, there you go. Hey, it's Ukrainians firing javelins. Javelin's warhead is excellent. The missiles can set to fly in a diving attack profile so that it impacts the less well-protected roof of the target vehicle. It's an inspired choice to send those particular things in. Let's see. Ukraine armored column, something like that. Probably something in there. Yeah. So these guys are coming in. They're not. I don't know why they're going to want these javelins for that shit. The Russian columns of tanks. Russia warns of horrible conflict if Georgia joins NATO. This happens all the time. Lone Ukrainian force tries to stop column of Russian Z armored cars in echo of Tiananmen Square tank. Yipes. Roadblock. Lone Ukrainian tries to stop. Oh, this is the guy who is standing in front of these things. The individual guy walking in front of these things, trying to get them to like this. These are all coming into Ukraine. That dude. So yeah, they're never going to take him out. And again, this is at the beginning. This is right after Putin declared this region as the separatist regions as independent, and then sent in peacekeepers.
Is around Kiev. If they take them to the east and start hitting Russian tanks, they're just going to be wiped out. The Ukrainian military is a joke.
Yeah, the Ukrainian military is a joke, guys.
But they have imported, I mean, in December, the Biden administration authorized 200 million, I believe,
Yes.
in 200 million in new weapons shipments to Ukraine. But the total number is something like 6 billion. So it's just, they're job creators.
Yes.
Keeping this conflict going, it's job creators for a U.S. economy.
Yeah, they're not sending these things because those folks are going to need them. They're just sending them to sell them.
That's just this dying carcass.
And I just wanted to show that it hasn't been Russia that has turned their back on negotiation. Of course, right?
Yeah, it wasn't them. They're the peacekeepers. That's why they called them peacekeepers. They're called peacekeepers for a reason.
So here, Russia keeps Dore open
It
after
says that.
United.
Yeah, they kept. Yeah, after the U.S. rejected the idea that Russia gets to dictate what sovereign countries can do.
States rejects key security demands. That was from January 27th. Ukraine won't settle for dialogue with rebels. That's
so terrible. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba on Monday refused direct negotiations with rebels in the east of the country. This is, by the way, as the buildup is happening.
The Ukraine Foreign Minister says won't settle for dialogue with rebels. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba.
Yeah, all they want to do is talk at the, with the 10,000 tanks pointed at them.
On Monday, refused direct negotiations with rebels in the east of the country. What?
What did he do that for? Why would he do such a thing?
Here's another one. U.S. and NATO rule out halts to expansion, reject Russia's demands. Well, who
my
you
God.
tell me?
Yeah, you tell me. What does Russia have to do? They can't just let a sovereign country make its own decisions, especially if it feels threatened, to join a group of people so that it feels safer. Well, that's ridiculous. Look, I don't care if she wants to somebody to watch her as she walks home at night. That can't be. She's got to walk home in the dark, and that's my decision. Why? Because I'm her ex, and I get to say so. And she can't own a gun. What? Yeah, she has to walk home at night, and she can't own a gun, and nobody can be with her when she walks by herself. Why? Because she used to be with me. She's not anymore. Yeah, but I get to tell her who she can date and where she can go, and if she doesn't, I can kill her in the dark. And if you don't allow me that opportunity, then you're violating my right to peace talks. What?
Who is pushing for a confrontation? It's the West.
Yeah, they're pushing for confrontation by not allowing Russia to surround Ukraine.
United States. Ukrainian foreign minister rejects special status for areas controlled by separatists.
Right. It's their fucking country. The separatists are Russian, armed, trained, and led. Fuck you.
From February. So,
it's, the peace is really up to the Americans and to the NATO and the EU. Why won't they just let Russia take Ukraine and do what they want with the people of Ukraine? They used to have control of them, and it used to be fine. They used to do all the stuff they do in Russia, but on this land. And now they don't want to do it anymore.
Again, I've seen the reason why I'm showing you all this is because I can't believe how bad the coverage has been on this.
Yes, I can't believe how bad the coverage has been in this fucking video.
Even from people on YouTube, right? Especially, or
dear God, man. This, singularly, this is the dumbest fucking take. Even, Tucker Carlson has started to backpedal and go, well, I didn't mean that in some cases.
Especially. Maybe especially from people on YouTube. Everybody was laughing at Kyle Kalinski's unbelievably horrible take the other day.
Oh, were they? I haven't seen that one. But if it's in contrast to what you're saying, it might be a broken clock moment for Kyle Kalinski
on this. And well, here let's show you
what was the idea that he floated that was so bad, Jimmy? If you're going to dunk on him for a second, what was the essence of his argument? That NATO expansion should be up to a country to make its own fucking decision, and that if Russia thinks it can invade them to stop it, it's lunacy and dangerous and murderous and imperialistic expansion. Colonialism.
Here's some mainstream news media that's just stoking the fans.
Yeah.
You ready for this?
Yeah. U.S. says Russia is compiling a list of Ukrainians to be killed or sent to camps following a military occupation. The allegation is a letter sent to the UN sent Sunday and obtained by the Washington Post. Okay, is that false?
This is from the Washington Post writer, a scoop from John Hudson. He says, U.S. says Russia is compiling a list of Ukrainians, quote, to be killed or sent to camps following a military occupation. The allegation is in letter to the UN sent Sunday and obtained by the Washington Post. My latest. And I love, so Aaron Mate had perfect response. He said, jokes aside.
Yeah. Again, why is this the Jimmy Dore show when when Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate are apparently he's just reading their shit?
Ranks as one of the most cynical and offensive U.S. intelligence propaganda attempts ever. Up there with Gaddafi's mass Viagra pills or Kuwaiti babies being seized from incubators.
Jokes aside, this ranks as one of the most cynical and offensive U.S. intelligence propaganda attempts ever. Because it's not true? Are you you're alleging that it's not true based on what? Because you just don't believe it? Because the Washington Post is posting it? I mean, they've got to print a retraction. You guys can just move on and act like
for that
nothing ever happened.
Those are good times. So they're still doing it. So when you go to
yes, whatever Bush was doing, Biden's doing that. It doesn't matter.
The thing.
America is always run by.
Would tell you the truth
America is
about
always run by bad guys. That's the idea. Fucking hell.
But now they're all telling you bullshit about it. So, of course, not over at the Gray Zone. You guys are getting it right over there. And pushback. Correct? You guys are getting
yeah.
All right, good. All right.
Yeah, and we're hitting all the algorithms on YouTube. I mean, they're just bumping us up at the top of everybody's feed.
He's even doing the shadow banned bullshit that the right does all the time.
Counteracting all the war propaganda you see.
So, and what does this tell you? This tells you that your government...
What does this tell me? I'm just returning from the Munich Security Conference where national security leaders from the U.S. and Europe gathered to confront the Ukraine crisis. Some good news. I'm honestly never seen more unity among our allies or our two parties in Congress on any global issue. Either, I mean, it's one of two things, Occam's razor or Occam's rubber mallet. It's either because it's such a clear-cut case of evil or it's a giant conspiracy to eat poor Russia.
When this guy tweets this out, that he just got back from the Munich Security Conference, and I've honestly never seen more unity among our allies or our two main parties in Congress on a global issue, talking about Ukraine. That's horrible. And
he's not just some guy.
He's not just some guy. Putin appeases and apologists say we could avoid a war by giving into his demand that Ukraine never join NATO. That's a reasonable demand, by the way.
No, it isn't. That's up to Ukraine. You can't allow him to dictate what a sovereign country wants to do. We can't even. What are we going to do? Like, no. Somebody's outside the cabin. There's a bear approaching. You promised you wouldn't let them in the cabin. You just let the bear eat them, is the idea. How is this? It's not reasonable at all. If the threat is unreasonable, the response is reasonable.
Forgot Ukraine made that promise in 2010, and Russia still invaded it 4 years later. What is that?
What's that about? What is that? They didn't invade it. We did a coup and put neo-Nazis in charge, guys.
What happened between 2010 and 2014? It's like Russia just invaded it for fun.
Paul Manafort.
We're just.
And by the way, Jimmy doesn't even fucking know what he's laughing at right there. And you can tell. He's laughing because he thinks he should, or there's some sort of idea that this is absurd on its face. But he doesn't know what the fuck is going on. He doesn't know any of the history of this. He doesn't give a shit about the history of this. He doesn't know, and he's been pushing back against what he calls Russiagate, protecting Trump for so long that he can't even look at the Manafort connection to Yanukovych or any of that crowd.
Board of Russia, let's get some.
So here's some
new stuff.
Here's some more of the Washington Post. Here's New York Times. Now this to me also, rubbed me the wrong way. Two Republicans running for Senate in Ohio have taken sharply different positions over the Ukraine-Russia crisis. It's a skirmish that pits Trump-style America First isolationists against more traditional hawkish Republicans. What? They somehow made hawkish Republicans try to sound nice. Did you hear that?
No, they're saying isolationist, like fuck it all, versus hawkish on Russia in particular. It's a weird split for that party, not for life.
Isn't that amazing? Can you believe they? That's amazing to me. I don't know. You have any response to that?
That's because do you have any response to that? Can you fill it in? It's amazing to me. Can you say something worth saying? Because I got nothing.
Yeah, the Democrats are freaking out that there is a faction within the Republican Party that doesn't want to send all the boys from Scranton to Spokane to fight and die for some U.S. neo-colony thousands of miles away.
Yeah, that's what we're worried about. That's the guys from Scranton. That's why Biden has said we're not sending troops in there. And also the other geopolitical aspects of World War III if NATO intervenes in a country that isn't NATO and what that entails. Like, it's just childish.
That's terrifying to them.
That is.
And so they're siding with the traditional hawkish Republicans. Lindsey Graham, who said it would be worthwhile to kill a lot of Koreans in order to teach North Korea a lesson. That's their new hero. He's their new John McCain.
Yeah. Yeah. So
what do you mean? Yeah. What the fuck?
that's how so if you're against war, they have to pay you as some kind of crazy isolationist Trumper. So
no, you don't. Unless, well, maybe his entire audience is made up of Trumpers. That may be where we are at this point. That he may be talking to his demographic. He sees his analytics. He knows who watches his show. He knows the majority of viewers that he has. And they're certainly not what you would consider traditional lefties or Democrats at this point, because I mean, look at his comment about Bernie Sanders earlier.
Anybody who's against war in Ukraine is a crazy isolationist Trumper.
No, he's talking about sending troops in particular. That's a split in the Republican Party. What they're saying is it's an odd split for them to have, not in the conversation overall.
Why don't you just go be a nice war hawk? All right.
But they're traditional. They're traditional.
They're very,
like,
very.
It's like more American.
It is traditional for Republicans
To want.
Yeah. Tradition. We traditionally like
have a nuclear war. We traditionally are like Dr. Strangelove.
Fuck, man. That was a tooth pull. Lord almighty. Thanks for hanging in there, guys. I went long by a lot on that one, but I just, I had to deal with that at some point. Just ridiculous.